Yeah. Good morning and welcome to this first set of public hearings into the fresh produce market inquiry. By way of introduction, in March 2023, the Competition Commission launched the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry. The main objective of the inquiry is to identify features or combination of features that inhibit or distort competition and participation in the fresh produce value chain. Where there are competition and or public interest issues, the Fresh Produce Market Inquiry aims to provide recommendations to foster and ensure equitable and meaningful participation in the value chain for the benefit of all stakeholders as well as consumers in the economy. In this sense, the inquiry is considering aspects of both consumer welfare and public interest. The inquiry's consideration of the issues are divided into three themes. These are the efficiency of the value chain, with an emphasis on the dynamics around fresh produce market facilities, market dynamics of key inputs and their impact on producers, and barriers to entry facing SMEs and HDP producers. The inquiry's starting point during its considerations have been to consider all fresh produce commodities as a whole. However, specific emphasis is being placed on certain commodities where a specific delineation between products are warranted. These commodities are, so for fruits we have apples, citrus, bananas, pears, and table grapes. For vegetables we have potatoes, onions, carrots, cabbage, tomatoes, and spinach. Public hearings are an important part of the inquiry's processes and allow for a further means of engagement between the inquiry and stakeholders in a public setting. The first round of public hearings will form part of the inquiry's information and evidence gathering processes. To date, the inquiry has gathered extensive information from a wide range of stakeholders across the value chain and held workshops with SME and HDP farmers across various parts of the country. The public hearings will present another opportunity for stakeholders to present their views on the challenges and potential solutions which impact the South African fresh produce value chain. For the first round of public hearings, 39 potential stakeholders were invited. Based on their written submissions to the inquiry and the opportunity presented by their submission to explore certain critical topics. Over the next number of days, the inquiry will call on a total of 15 stakeholders to each partake in a dedicated session with the inquiry. The remaining stakeholders declined the inquiry's invitation, either citing that they don't have further input to provide or due to availability. We will continue engaging with these and other stakeholders, and a second set of public hearings may, as a result, be arranged in due course. I shall be chairing these proceedings and will be assisted by the inquiry's technical director, Mr. Juan Marais. Stakeholders will be led by two evidence leaders, Mr. Derek Bowles and Mr. Mfundo Ngobese, both admitted attorneys and in the employ of the Competition Commission. They will be supported by the inquiry's technical team. Stakeholders will be afforded about 30 minutes to address the inquiry. Thereafter, the evidence leaders will pose certain questions to each stakeholder. Proceedings are live streamed and also recorded. Insofar possible, the hearings will be conducted in a manner that does not divulge confidential information. At times, the proceedings may either enter into an in-camera session to safeguard confidential information. Such sessions will be limited to ensure as much of the proceedings as possible occur in public session. As final introductory words, I express my thanks for the time which stakeholders are affording to these hearings. We will remain mindful to stay as close to the program and allotted time slots as possible, but some flexibility is in order. I will now call our first stakeholder, Dr. Cynthia Motsi, Senior Manager, Intellectual Property Management and Commercialization at the ARC. Dr. Motsi, welcome, and thank you for making the time to participate in this inquiry. Do you object to taking an oath?
No, I don't object.
Don't object. So please, I believe there must be some oath before her there. I hope the team put something there for you.
Maybe what I can do then is, there should be a piece of a document there, but it's fine. Maybe what I can do is just ask you to.
Otherwise I can read.
Yeah.
Please state your full names.
Cynthia Molobeheng Mutsi.
Do you have any objections to taking an oath?
I don't have any objection to take an oath.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes, the oath is binding on my conscience.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear to tell the whole truth.
Please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. I now hand over to Mr. Derek Bowles to lead the Agricultural Research Council in the first session.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Hi. Can you maybe let's just start with your full name, please, and your designation, just for the record.
Okay, my full name, I'm Cynthia Molobeheng Mutsi. I'm from the Agricultural Research Council. I'm the Senior Manager, Intellectual Property Management and Commercialization.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Just secondly, could you kindly confirm that you have the requisite authority to represent the ARC in the proceedings today?
Yes, I've been delegated by my acting group executive to come and represent the ARC at this hearing today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in terms of housekeeping, we've divided the session up into two. The first 30 minutes are allocated to you and the ARC to provide us some insight into the work the ARC does. And then the second portion of the session will be run by myself, and I'll ask you some questions which the technical team has put together. So in terms of that, I think I can go over to you. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will make reference in terms of what was previously submitted. The Agricultural Research Council is a public entity which was established on the 1st of December 1990. The ARC is listed as Schedule 3 entity in terms of FPMI, and the objectives of the ARC is to conduct drive research and development and transfer information in order to promote agriculture and the industry, to contribute to a better of life, to facilitate and ensure natural resource conservation and alleviate poverty. By virtue of the mandate of the ARC, the institution is positioned in such a way that it enhances competitiveness in the agricultural sector. There are four main aspects that relates to this. The first one is to develop new technologies which enhance high yield by serving as an agent of social security safety net responsible for addressing issues that relates to food security, climate change, and maintenance of biodiversity and control of pest and disease. The third one is to provide training for short courses that are cutting across the discipline of the agricultural research value chain. And with these courses, they would include areas such as vegetable production, post-harvest handling of vegetable crops, agro-processing, and marketing. And lastly, the ARC house and maintains the gene banks on behalf of different departments, including the Department of Agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matsi. Maybe let's just start with some of those the items that you mentioned in terms of the ARC's mandate. So, first of all, as you indicate, one of the ARC's main roles in the fresh produce market is the development of cultivars and breeds that enhance, as you said, high yields, increase resistance to disease, and also the extension of shelf life, or the shelf life of fruits and vegetables. So, can you maybe indicate the number of new cultivars and breeds the ARC has developed for the fresh produce industry in the past 10 years? A rough estimate is fine. Is this something that you do on an ongoing basis, or?
It's something that we do on an ongoing basis, yeah. I was not aware that I have to go as far as maybe mentioning 10 years. I would say we have developed around perhaps 200 new varieties or so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Can you provide some examples first, off the top of your head?
The varieties that I'm referring to will be from citrus, which includes lemons and the mandarins. Table grapes, we have the whole group under stone and palm varieties that we have developed. Under vegetables, we focus mainly on sweet potato and potato. And then in terms of the other varieties, such as the onions and the potato, we only keep the lines. So we have lines which are not protected, which would normally license them out, which will be combined with the other technologies. And then we do have patents that we have protected as well. In terms of the patent, we have less than 5 that we have protected in the past 10 years, which is protected in different territories. Yeah. And then we also have trademarks that we have recently protected as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you maybe explain to us the process, or what happens following the development of these cultivars, and how the ARC commercializes these cultivars? You mentioned now about some patents that have been registered over these. Just explain to us the process, following the development of that, and how the cultivars then sort of, hit the ground, so to speak.
Okay. The ARC, like any other science council and university, we do have an OTT, which is responsible for protection of R&D outputs. So the process that follows is that we'll receive a report to say there's a disclosure of IP. We think there's a potential IP which will get assessed internally, which will be shared with the lawyers. After they have done a thorough assessment, then the IP will be protected. We'll identify the territories where we want to protect it based on the market, or perhaps based on that, just the strategic IP protection, to say we anticipate there might be infringement, so let's protect in that territory. So that will be the method that gets followed, and our office then will be responsible for the maintenance and the other processes. And then in terms of the varieties or the PBRs, we'll receive an application. We assess if it complies. The application then gets submitted to the register to follow the process. And then there will be a need to also indicate where the material is planted, so that the evaluations can take place. So prior to that, they would have done, our researchers would have done the work to ensure that it passes the DSU in terms of what they have assessed, and then it still needs to be assessed by the register to check if indeed it qualifies. And then it will follow their process, it will be granted. Then from our side, we'll start to market it. The process would start from the campus wherein they actually do open days to indicate that they have new varieties. From time to time, we also get people that are just coming that knows that the ARC do develop certain varieties wherein they come and check to say, what's new in terms of what we have developed. Then such information will be shared. And recently we have been strongly doing the advertisement where we would put on a tender process to say we have our material, is there anyone interested? Then that process will unfold. We'll be negotiating the license agreement up until we agree in terms of what we agree on the license agreement, which will be signed. The material will be moved to the other party, then they will start with the production of such, yes, and then we'll receive royalties. And from time to time we sit and then we assess actually on an annual basis to check how is the material performing, what's happening, are we getting royalties, are you having issues? The meeting will include technical people that have read the material in our office so that we have a collective feedback.
Okay.
Yes.
And maybe just in terms of a public interest mandate accompanying that commercialization. So does the ARC ensure that the cultivars obviously are available to or accessible to farmers broadly, but more specifically, is there equitable access to smallholder farmers and HDI farmers?
Okay, so in terms of, I'll just give an example in terms of how we have been doing commercialization. So we do put a clause in our license agreement wherein we are saying to the licensee, you need to have BBBEE compliant, you need to have perhaps nurseries that are BBBEE, or how you are going to ensure that you bring in smallholder farmers and train them accordingly so that they can also be commercial farmers. So we do have such a clause that we monitor continuously to ensure that we are bringing in the smallholder farmers. Another area in terms of the research that the ARC does, we get funding from government, and there will be a requirement to say, you develop this variety, but it must go out there for food security. So such varieties then will actually be issued out to smallholder farmers, and they will do the production, they will earn. In such cases, the ARC is not even receiving royalties, but the ARC will ensure that there's technology transfer. They go and check and monitor, transfer the skills in terms of planting this variety, and the smallholder farmers, they would actually benefit from such process.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, so maybe let's move on to some challenges the ARC faces in carrying out its mandates in relation to the development of new cultivars. Can you talk us through some of the challenges that you've faced, maybe in terms of funding or any other particular challenges?
Okay, in terms of how perhaps we want to bring in the smallholder farmers, I know it's been happening for quite a long time, but from time to time we keep on trying to improve. We want the varieties that we develop to be out there for everybody else to know about them. The uptake from the smallholder farmers, it's not as much as we want it to be, even though there are different initiatives. Yes, we want to see return on investment, but we also want to see smallholder farmers getting an opportunity, getting the correct varieties that are competitive with anybody else out there, locally and internationally. We do market, but I don't think we have reached that point. So for me, it's still a challenge that we are not reaching as much as we want to. Yes.
And I mean, are there any initiatives that you've undertaken to overcome these challenges in reaching or expanding that HDI, SMME, or small-scale farmer level of the value chain?
We are still trying to market, advertise. One of the approach was to say perhaps we need to go directly to different associations and then try to engage them at that level. But maybe one of the things that we might have a problem with is to say we'll have a variety that we want to give them. And if we are not giving them the offtake, how are they going to sell if they don't have somebody to offtake? Because we'll be coming to say, we as the ARC, we have this variety. We want you to sign. We'll give you these terms for the contract. So they would want to know where they should be taking this. Because perhaps with the big commercialization entity, they would have the whole full value chain to say, this is how we'll take it when you have the produce, this is how we'll take it forward. So that leg is still, I think, missing from our side. So we might have the varieties, but if we don't have an offtake on the other side, that might still be of a challenge.
And are there other institutions that you're reaching out to in this regard to perhaps partner up with NGOs or other government departments that could assist?
There is engagement with different government departments, even at provincial level. Basically, it's more on training and then providing some technology transfer. But in terms of these new products that we have, it's not as intense as it should. We are hoping to increase on that and then change that.
All right, so there are plans in place to address that?
Yes, we are aggressively trying to go into different levels to engage.
Is there perhaps something a little bit more formal that you can, something that's more formalized that you can refer us to? Or?
No, there's nothing formal. It's just discussion between our office and different senior managers at different levels, the heads of the campuses.
Okay.
Like, for an example, we have engagements with one of our campus, which is in Nelspruit, the tropical and subtrop. So we are looking to engage more. They are very busy on that level, engaging different provinces. So that's just what we have been talking about and then working on. But there's nothing formal that we have put in place to say this is the map or the road map, but it's what we have been doing. Yes.
All right, thank you. Maybe let's move on then to the second mandate, at least that I've identified here, which is the provision of research and support to small-scale and HDI farmers. So maybe just talk to that mandate, maybe expand upon what you just said earlier in your introduction in relation to this mandate. Can you provide us with just a bit more detail there?
Okay. So in terms of some of these varieties that we have or some other new technologies that we develop based on perhaps the funding that we received, researchers responsible in that area would actually go to farmers and then they will provide them training in terms of the planting and the whole process. We also provide training to farmers, which is also perhaps what is coming from different departments to ensure that the ARC does provide such training. In other cases, you'll find that the ARC perhaps wants to provide training, but we need funding to be able to do the training for the smallholder farmers. So perhaps that can be seen as one of the challenges to say, yes, we want to, but in other instances, there's a need for funding to actually do that. In the past, I think we received funds from a private organization, and then those funds were actually used to train, because then there was funding, then we were able to assist in that. In other instances, the process is still continuous, but in other cases, you find that there's a need for funding in those cases, because it will depend also by crops.
Maybe let's just take a step back. How is the ARC funded?
We receive parliamentary grant. We receive funding from research proposals that are presented, and if they get granted, research proposals, PG. Yes, I think that's all. Yeah.
And then how is that budget allocated? I mean, so what portion of your budget, your annual budget, is given to this research and support function?
Sure, I haven't checked the percentage in terms of that, but because it's our core, I would assume that a bigger percentage would go to R&D, because it's our core mandate as an organization. So the other one will go to support, and yeah.
All right. So just to understand that, I mean, so are you saying that the budget that you have is insufficient to essentially fully carry out this mandate that you have in terms of research and support? If you're looking for alternative, or if you're looking for additional funding from elsewhere?
Yes, it doesn't cover everything, because, for an example, if there's a project that has to deal with, that relates to water, climate, perhaps area, there's a need for us as the ARC to perhaps apply for funding from Water Research Council. I'm just making an example to say we have this project that falls within the mandate of Water Research Council. This is what we want to do. Perhaps we are partnering with this university, or it's only the ARC. And this is the cost. This is what we are interested on, and then we get funding. Or we apply for funding from DSI, this is what we are doing, and then we need funding for this particular project. Or there's a tender process from Department of Rural Development, and then we apply for that, and then it gets awarded. So from time to time, we do engage in those, even internationally, when there's an opportunity to apply for funding. We want to apply for funding for vaccines, then we do that as an organization.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the FPMI, you might not know this, but we've done a series of workshops around the country, and the sort of purpose of that is to reach small-scale farmers on the ground. And we've actually, our team has just come back from the Western Cape last week. But through this process, we've encountered a number of issues, specifically relating to the availability of different cultivars. And this was the experience in the Eastern Cape and specifically the KwaZulu-Natal provinces. So the main issue, I think, that was raised there by the small-scale farmers is the lack of alternative suppliers and the availability of different cultivars to the farmers. So an example in the Eastern Cape, for instance, where they indicated that a specific type of cultivar which works well in that particular region was only available from one specific supplier. And obviously, you can imagine transport for these farmers at this level is a huge problem. Is the ARC aware of the supplier issues that are facing these small-scale farmers? And maybe just talk to us about the way these suppliers are organized, whether the ARC has a role to play in that.
Okay. I'm not sure. I don't think we are aware. Do you mind to share which cultivars they were referring to?
Just hang on a second. Well, maybe just while they're getting it, just in general. Okay, that's right, megaton.
Okay, what is that?
Sorry. But Maybe just in general terms, just the way these cultivars are arranged or commercialized, and maybe we're going back to the earlier points around commercialization. But are there suppliers that work with the ARC specifically in distributing these cultivars, or?
Okay. So in terms of the cultivars that we have or what we breed, it will differ per maybe the needs or what we have been focusing on as an organization. So we have the particular ones that we are really working on, and the other varieties we don't. So perhaps in those ones we just have material in the gene bank, and it's not, I don't want to use the word core, but maybe core in brackets to say it's not our core variety that we would breed and try to improve based on how perhaps we are aligned to the master plan and so forth. So I don't think it's everything that we do. Yes, we might have something on the database, but we are not aware of the need or the shortage of particular varieties, but we are aware that we have a huge database of material that has been protected that we want it to go out there. So that one, we are aware of it, to say we have this, it must go out, it must be commercialized. We are looking for parties to take it and commercialize it on behalf of the ARC.
Okay, thank you. Maybe just in terms of regional challenges that we as a country face, insofar as cultivar development for local agroecological conditions is concerned, are there any regional challenges that we experience that the ARC looks at and tries to overcome through various cultivar development?
From my office or the engagements that I had with the researchers, nothing that I know of, because in terms of my role, I don't get that deep in terms of the ecological problems or what I could have had perhaps in meetings, not that I'm aware of. Yes.
All right. Okay, I think let's move on then. So what can be done to ensure that there are sufficient suppliers of cultivars which are in demand in a particular region? You did mention that you might have something that's sitting somewhere and you realize it's got to get out. Talk us through that process. Does it go out on tender? How do you partner up with those distributors or suppliers?
It goes out on tender, and from time to time we also get parties that just approach the ARC. They can also do that just to see if we have such material that they can plant. Yes.
Okay. So in your submission, you mentioned that the ARC is in the process of technology transfer, in terms of which you work with extension officers from the Department of Agriculture. Can you maybe explain to us what is meant by technology transfer, and which technologies are we referring to here?
Okay, in terms of technology transfer that I'm referring to, I will take one example, which is the Wema maize that has been planted in different areas. So what happens is that our researchers would go to the farmers through the assistant of the extension officers in order to transfer knowledge perhaps on planting, checking, like teaching the farmers how to take care of this particular crop, visit them to check if they are having challenges, and then advise them if there are issues, if perhaps they are not, where in situations where there's a need for watering, that's where then they would come in to say perhaps you did not use enough pesticides and so forth. So they would actually provide those services. So I'm just using that project because I know it well, yes.
Maybe moving on to the extension officers, can you explain the role that the extension officers play in this process? Sorry. With regards to the extension officers, can you maybe explain the role that the extension officers play in the process of technology transfer?
Okay, what I'm about to say, perhaps it might be limited, but in terms of the engagement that I've seen, they actually would bring a community together, look for these particular farmers that are actually having problems in their farm or in their plots, and explain to them how the ARC or the department is trying to help. So they go beyond, even when the ARC is not there perhaps to do technology transfer. They are the ones that are actually on the ground checking if everything is okay, and then they can also be able to report to the ARC to say, you are here, we are now encountering this problem, perhaps you need to come back. So they also work as perhaps as a channel between us, the ARC and the farmers as well. Yes. Because for us to be able to get to them, we need to talk to the extension officers. So we don't just go directly to them. There's a need to engage the extension officers.
All right.
Yes.
And maybe just as a general proposition, the extension officers and the role that they're playing, is it working currently? Are there sufficient extension officers, in your opinion, on the ground to service the number of small-scale farmers out there?
I think they are enough in terms of certain crops, but for other crops, there are no extension officers. So that's a little bit of perhaps a challenge, because if we have the technology and there's no expert or extension officer in the field, for an example of citrus, then it becomes a challenge to actually get more smallholder farmers to participate in that, because there's no one.
Has this been something you've taken up with the Department of Agriculture?
I'm not sure if they have taken it up. From my side, we haven't engaged to that level.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So just the last question then, with regards to global gap requirements. I'm sure you know about that. Just indicate whether the ARC has some initiatives with the Department of Agriculture or any other organization at least to assist small-scale farmers in obtaining the compliance required in terms of global gap.
I don't know of such, yes.
Is that not something the ARC looks at?
No, we are not involved in that process.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
What perhaps we would do, like recently what has happened, we have been working with the department to get market access in Taiwan for one of our cultivars, which is the processor that is ongoing. So that's how far we would go, because then we would want, but I'm not sure if it would include the smallholder farmer. But if we have somebody who gets the material, then we know there's market access and they would need to take the material up there.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the last theme would be with regards to the master plan itself. The Department of Agriculture has obviously released their master plan. Has there been any specific alignment with the ARC and the Department of Agriculture in obtaining the goals set out, or the objectives at least set out in the master plan? Has there been some sort of engagement with regards to or alignment in terms of that master plan and the ARC's role in obtaining that?
Yes, the ARC was involved in the master plan engagements, the discussion. In terms of the alignment, yes, there's alignment, because what we report on as our APP it's aligned to the activities on the master plan.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I mean, can you maybe speak to some sort of progress that has happened, or where you are currently within that process?
Okay, during, I think, our report for the past few years, like reporting this year at the beginning of the quarter, we did actually very well in terms of the activities. I think what we felt was not perhaps translated better is the area where we talk about plantation of some of our material, the new varieties. So we felt we did not translate it accordingly because, for an example, most of the deciduous fruits that are planted, they are basically ARC cultivars. So you take that, and then we also look into most of the citrus, the also activities that are done with the smallholder farmers where we are giving the material for free. So we are expecting that in that area we should have done at least 3/5 of the area, because that's how it's been spelled, to say like the area in terms of plantation, how can we speak to that in terms of whether is it bad or is it good, like at what stage. So we are of the view that that area we just didn't report it properly, but we are doing very well in terms of our material that is there, that is planted. Yes.
All right. And I mean, so maybe just on a more formal level, what is the ARC's role with regards to the master plan itself, and where it ties in with some of the objectives that are set out there?
We do participate in the drafting, the discussions. So our researchers will be nominated to be part of the team that actually comes up with that. So when we do it, we also look into our role into that so that we contribute meaningfully, and we should have also outputs that actually talks to that. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
Yeah, you have. I mean, I understand that the role that the ARC played in developing the master plan.
Yes.
But the master plan, at least my understanding, is complete. But what is happening now in terms of the implementation of that master plan? And I'd like to know from that aspect what the ARC's role is in implementing the sort of the processes that have been identified in reaching the objectives set out in the master plan.
Okay, so we have 6 outcome areas that we actually respond to as an organization. I don't have them here. I might have to open my laptop and then check them, because I did not. I'm not sure if you want me to check them.
Yeah, if you can, if you have it handy, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Apologies. Okay, apologies. The outcome areas that we are responding to as the ARC is increased agricultural production and productivity, improved nutritional value, quality and safety of agricultural products, a skilled and capable agricultural sector, and hence resilient of agriculture. I need to look for the last one. And then sustainable ecosystem and natural resource.
All right, thank you. And just in terms of those 6 outcome areas, what is the sort of process from here on out, maybe in the short term, in the next 12 months, in achieving those or at least the objectives you set in terms of those outcome areas? Are you working together with the Department of Agriculture in that respect? Are there timelines in place? Is there, just walk us through that process and where you are currently.
Okay, there are timelines in place when it comes to these activities. On a quarterly basis, we actually submit a report to say where we are in terms of the timelines. Where we are to date in terms of the outcomes, I've mentioned 6th outcome. I'm going to interpret the risk report. I hope I'll interpret it correctly. It says we have achieved 19% of the activities, which is actually better than the previous targets. But when you actually look into each outcome, you find that for the other outcome, we are on 33%, 50%, and so forth. So where we are, I think we are better off as in the past in terms of achieving our activities as per the APP.
Okay, so the department hasn't set sort of firm objectives for you and said, okay, look, we want, the following outcomes in terms of those outcome areas, and we need that implemented by, 2025, for instance. Is there nothing to that level of coordination with ARC and the Department of Agriculture?
There is, hence we are having to report on a quarterly basis, because we are saying this is the master plan and then this is how we fit in as the ARC, and this will be the targets and the implementation thereof it. So we are well within how they are expecting us to deliver as an organization.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Motsi. Is there anything else, I know I've been speaking a lot, but is there anything else from the ARC side that you want to discuss or raise? This is a public forum. Maybe any comments specifically on the fresh produce market inquiry?
Okay, maybe perhaps it's on what we initially submitted or as a report. I think in our first report we mentioned to say that yes, we are aware that perhaps there's price fixing issue, but where that was coming from was basically coming from literature review. So our economic division do impact studies, they read a lot of papers and they have to write some article. So one of the things that they would normally come across would be such to say when they read, they actually come across an issue to say, yes, there's issue on price fixing, we are not being assisted. So it's a combination of what would normally be coming from the articles, not per se as the mandate of the ARC. So some of the questions which were asked would normally be information that can be provided by NAMAC, which is one of the entities within our mother department. So yeah, I think what we provided on second round was actually just explaining some of the points which were not clear.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bowles. Dr. Motsi, maybe I needed to just some follow-ups, but maybe first to clarify. So, just the last statement you were making, what do you mean by this? What price fixing did you observe? Where is this?
Okay, so I meant that some of the comments which were provided on the first report, they are basically information that is coming from published article, because you would see that it was listed in that order. It's not something that we came across as the ARC. And if there are such issues, individuals would normally go to NAMAC because it's their role, not our role, because we do research and development, but we are not involved on issues of price fixing and so forth. Yes.
All right, thank you for that. I want to just to get a sense from you, because as you know, the market inquiry looks into potentially if there are distortions in the market. So in this case, it's the fresh produce inquiry into those specific products. Are there any distortions, at least from the ARC's point of view, that you have identified in the market that you think could be affecting the efficient functioning of the sector?
Not that I'm aware of. I think in our first report, we referred to some of the challenges that we think might be faced from the national fresh produce market. Those challenges maybe perhaps are some of the things that they need to be looked into so that they can assist the smallholder farmers to actually to be able to participate. I think I mentioned when I started to say we play a role to a certain point, but to a certain point we are actually battling. So we can have these varieties, but if there's no one who actually assists the smallholder farmers to say the market or offtake, then it's difficult for them to can even come to the ARC, because now they don't know what's going to happen when they have produced this thing, this particular variety. But if there can be that room to improve on the part of the uptake, perhaps we would see other things moving, because they don't want to plant and then they sit with the material, because they also want to see return on investment no matter how small they are. So perhaps maybe that area, if it can be looked into, and also to promote our varieties that we produce as an organization. We are the only agricultural research council in the country. We produce best wheat varieties. Can we look into saying for every ton of wheat that comes into the country, let so many of the wheat that has been developed by a South African organization come first? Can it be a priority? Can it be an exchange to say, how do we promote the cultivars that are bred by the ARC to be on top? They compete internationally, our varieties. We are out there. There's material in Chile, in many different countries in the world. But are we getting enough in terms of support from the country as a whole to say, you are an agricultural research council, this is how we are going to protect you in terms of the varieties that you produce because they go outside, let them also have a market locally. So I think we need that as an organization. Yes, there can be things that are still being brought in to compete, but let the material that is bred within the country get first preference, or it must come out there and be preferred to the others.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Maybe because I think you have mentioned is potatoes and citrus, and I think this is where you're producing the cultivars, right? And with those, is there any, what has been the utilization in the country, say for your potatoes and those in citrus? I think you mentioned table grapes. What has been the, I've had your example on wheat, and I just want to understand the utilization of these varieties you've been producing, those specific to potatoes and citrus in the country. So just to get a sense of the citrus that's in the market, on the shelves, can you sort of attribute some of that to the cultivars that you've been able to research and produce? Thank you.
Okay, so my answer will come from a commercialization person who wants to see income and being very competitive when it comes to the material that we produce. So in terms of the citrus varieties, we do have the best, one of our best variety, which is performing well. We do have others, but the intake is not as much as it should. I'm not sure perhaps it's done because of our licensee or perhaps the technology transfer. We do have quite a list which is not being taken as it should. We do have one of the citrus lemons which is competing with the other one, which in sense it should be one of our pride variety as the ARC because it's seedless. So it should be one of those that it should have been protected by the country. In terms of the potatoes, we have started to release quite a few recently, the varieties specifically for potato. The competition is very stiff with the big companies that are actually in the space. We do have the best, because we also gave to one of the big companies our material. And then when it comes to the sweet potato, is of a balance, because we have an obligation to a certain point to actually give this material out because of food security, because of its nutritional value. So some of this material is actually out there on royalty free because of part of our mandate. There is an interest on the sweet potato. I think it's doing well, but we are still not where we are supposed to be. And yes, we've got good varieties that are actually competing. Yes.
So are you maybe, because I think that information on commercialization can assist this inquiry, just to understand, from the cultivars you develop, how many are you able to commercialize, and what impact do they have in the market, essentially? Because I think we are looking at the levels of competition, in the retail level of those products. So whether when you look at the shelves in retail, that you can say this is the share of the ARC's cultivars at retail shelves, or do they ever reach there? And I think that is what we would like to know a bit more about. If you are able to share that information now, please do. But if not, maybe we can do a follow-up.
Okay, for some, I'm actually able to see them on the shelves, but for some, they actually label them differently. So when I go to the shop, I'm able to see this is our citrus because it will be labeled. I can see the label, the name. For others where it's no name, I'm not sure how they would have done it, because then we wouldn't see the name. Even at other fruits and vegetable shops, we can actually see checkers. When you go to checkers, we can identify this is our particular what variety. So for others, we are able to see, and then for others, we are unable to see. But perhaps because I work with them daily, so I can see the names. So to a certain extent, they are there.
Yes, I think maybe we will we'll just maybe send you a follow-up on that, just to get some specific information, because the other question I was going to ask you is on these challenges that you've identified, and I think you've identified a few also in your submission. And today again, what are those solutions that the ARC has in mind? So at least within the mandate of the commission or this inquiry, what are those solutions that can be considered to address the challenges you have raised, particularly of market access?
Okay, I think one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning was that we do put a BBBE clause on our license agreement. So we set it in a way that we discuss it with the licensee, and then we should agree into terms and conditions. There's been a change into legislation and so forth, so it's putting us in a certain stage, because the reason why we would want to do the BBBE, we are encouraging our big commercial farmers to say, assist us to bring in. So we are not saying they should go get like 100 in year one, but we are saying let's have a progressive activity that will be able to show that we have taken so many. This is where we have put them. They had these issues. This is how we have assisted them. They are able to commercialize with you, do exports with you internationally. So they should be able to cover the issue of the takeoff. So that's what we are trying to bring in into our license agreements. It's been there for a while. We are continuously monitoring it to ensure that it should happen, because we want to bring an impact and we want to see change.
Okay, so this is if I'm hearing correctly, so this is the licenses to the larger commercial farmers. Then you are placing some obligations on the commercial farmers.
Yes. So it's an agreed term.
So that is already happening. Is that already happening?
What has been it's already happening in our license agreements, except in situations where we have. Like for an example, sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, everybody comes and then looks for the sweet potato, so we can give it to everybody else. But when you go to other crops would actually put that clause. It's part of the contract because it's not everybody else that actually goes into that area. So we are implementing it. We are monitoring it. Yes.
Are you able to so because we have been looking at produce, within the country in different provinces, if it's fresh produce, citrus in Limpopo or Western Cape. So do you have because when we look at the submission, we're not sort of getting this information, but maybe we can ask you about the farmers, local farmers, even those that are exporting, that are utilizing the cultivars, right? Or like they have licensed the cultivars from the ARC relative to cultivars from elsewhere, right? I think if we go back to potatoes, I'm just even not sure what is the share of the local cultivars vis-a-vis the imported ones. So I think that kind of information, that at least for the products that we're interested in, that we have a sense of where we are producing mostly either from local, or are we importing the cultivars? What is the state of play there? But maybe I suppose we can, with the technical team, be a bit more specific on those particular issues.
Okay, so that information that we are requesting, some of it should be able to come from PACB because they deal with exports, so they should be able to pull out information and then say this is local variety which has been exported, or this one is international variety which has been exported. We can check internally with colleagues with the information that they have for some, perhaps for potatoes. They should be able to share with me that one. Yeah, and then some I can check with. Okay, I don't think the one that I can get from my licensee would actually cover to say against the local and the international which one, but the organization will be able to, to give you that information. It would be very specific even to say whether it's ARC or it's whoever. Yes. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much. My colleague Rowan has some questions for you.
Thank you, Doctor. To add, I think, to the chair and what the chairperson has asked, I think the chair has asked from a retail perspective. What I perhaps want to cover in not too many questions is from a producer perspective, so from a farmer perspective. And I want to explore just a little bit this statement you made about competition is stiff and we're competing with international breeders or international suppliers. You did mention that our varieties do compete internationally. I think you mentioned some of our varieties are in Chile. Does that apply for fresh produce as well? So in other words, our South African developed fresh produce varieties, would you say they compete internationally at the same standard as international varieties developed by other global firms?
Yes, sorry. Okay, so if you are referring to the list that was shared earlier on, what we responded on, yes, our varieties, they compete to that level. Because we recently locally have the potatoes, we haven't protected internationally or taken anything outside, but we do get such requests. Our sweet potato, yes, we do get international requests. In terms of our table grapes, our citrus, the whole lot of list. So our material is actually planted in different territories internationally, because when we issue out a license agreement, we actually want to see where, we want to know in which territories the material is planted. So we do have such.
Thank you, Doctor. And I think, I mean, again, just to clarify, so what we mean with sort of to compete internationally, we're talking about the technical abilities of our varieties. So in terms of their yield, the quality of the produce, that, you know, the need for chemicals, that sort of thing. We're saying we're on par with what the global manufacturers can deliver.
Yes, we are on par because they keep on coming, checking if there's anything new from the ARC. They want to get the material because they know we produce the best. So we keep on getting such requests.
All right, Doctor, and then, so we've spoken about the technical capabilities in terms of pricing. So if I'm a farmer and I'm saying, well, there's these varieties available, they're competing internationally, you know, it's no better if I go outside the country and import varieties versus just using our South African varieties. How do our varieties compare in terms of pricing? So I'm a farmer, I have to choose between a global supplier of my varieties or my local supplier from the ARC. How does the pricing compare? Would it be cheaper for me to go to the ARC varieties or to the global varieties? And in general, I mean, we don't have to talk specific figures here, just in general.
I wouldn't know if it's about the pricing or it's about the marketing ability of the other party. Because if they are able to sell what we give them, they should be able to convince the other party. If they are not concentrating only on specific groups, then they should be able to cover everybody else. But if the farmer is there and they get a better offer and they are told about a better market as well, they would go for that one because then they know this thing they are told it will be exported to so many territories. So it's a little bit of a little bit of a gray area from our side, because then we give this to the other party and then we entrust them to market this material fully. We also say on the license agreement that we'll also assist them. So we are also assisting them to market. We are also expecting them to market. So if there's a challenge, then it's something that we need to look into if it's not the pricing issue. It would be of interest to actually get somebody who found themselves in a situation where they had to choose between the South African one or the international one, even if it's not from the ARC, just to understand the complexity in that area.
Thank you, Doctor. So to clarify, I mean, you're saying that we might be cheaper, we might not. I mean, that's something we can obviously check at a later stage. But even if we are cheaper, it's a marketing problem as well. And I think that's my next question is, again, how does the ARC's marketing capabilities compare to the international breeders? If we say, all right, so this is a question where farmers might not be aware that there are very technically sound varieties that perform as well, if not better, because they were bred in our conditions, as your international varieties. But it's a situation that they're not aware that we have these varieties or how to get them. And that, I think, is a marketing question. So if you have to speak on behalf of ARC, how does the marketing of our varieties compare versus the varieties of international brands?
Okay, the ARC has been doing open days forever. So what we have now tried to improve is to say, can we not only do open days, but can we also go on tender process so that everybody else know? Not only certain people that knows the ARC, even those that don't know the ARC. And we're also been involved in international trade shows where we actually market this. Internationally, one of our variety, which is a Joy Bell table grape, was launched in Berlin. So that's how far we go. It's a pity we missed the one for this year because of other issues. But yeah, we go out there when there's, from our side, the technology transfer. There are situations where we get to showcase at local trade shows. We go to NAMPO, the ARC, many trade shows. We showcase our technologies. So we are out there. The question perhaps would be, are we receiving more support to to prioritize the local bred material as the country? Like, are we giving it more focus? Like I mentioned, to say we produce the best wheat varieties, but we still import some. Is there something that needs to be looked at to say how can we better our local bread? We can still take internationally, but can we, push for our local bread?
Thank you, Doctor. And I think that does sort of go into my final question. Is really, you made a comment earlier to say that are we protecting our varieties? We need to protect our local varieties. And I think maybe there's two levels of that, and I would like your take on this. Is there's perhaps at the producer level, at the farmer level, an awareness problem, which we link to marketing just now, to say maybe it's just that farmers don't know there's variety, or someone else's marketing is better than mine, and they're going to the global varieties when there's a perfectly good variety, South African variety here. So that's the first level, I think, is the producer level. And then the second level is on the retail level, to say, well, do South Africans, does the consumer know that citrus, that sweet potato, whatever fruit or vegetable is on the shelf is a South African variety? So maybe on those two fronts, if you could answer to say, well, if we say we need to protect our varieties, what does that mean in your view at the producer level and at the retail level?
Okay, at the producer level, perhaps government can have initiatives where they are saying we want to give, to buy perhaps seeds or, trees for so many, and per province, this is how much we are going to give them, but we are going to use this particular variety for this particular reason. We would negotiate perhaps a better rate for them as they are smallholder farmers. I think that would be the marketing part, that actually saying we have better varieties. So I think the farmers, they also would like to hear government doing something for them. So it will also bring attraction, because then they would wait again to say, this is how it has worked. Are we not getting anything? Or now we know that there is this organization that perhaps is having this. We're not aware that they have such good varieties. Can we check with them? So it will open another door of more discussion and wanting to know more, wanting to find out more. In terms of retail, that one is a little bit tricky, because they are pushing their specific mandate. But if we as organization try to promote to them to say this is local, because I've seen, for an example, at Woolworths, there's this other new variety. They are putting it on a specific place, and then because it has a South African logo, it's local. So if we promote that as well, to say local bread, like it needs to get a certain attention, which needs to be dealt, I think, with the at retail space from the side of takeoffs. It will have a certain impact, because I think they also want to be seen selling local material. You will still get some which are not, but they also want to be seen selling local.
Thank you. I'm almost done, Chair. Just a final follow-up. I think on the retail side, I mean, from the ALC's perspective, right, because I don't think we're asking you to say, you have to go promote South African brands in retail stores. But I think from the ALC's perspective, and again from a marketing perspective, to say, look, these are our varieties, these are our South African varieties, and I think that might be linked to the point about whether or not they are cheaper, because perhaps there's not as many import costs associated than with local or with international brands. So from the ALC's perspective, I mean, something from your side that could be done to say, these are South African varieties, they're planted in these volumes and this sort of thing, because I think that's not general knowledge, at least from a retail, from a consumer perspective. Perhaps just a comment on that.
Okay, so we don't deal directly with retail. However, it would be of interest for us to see, yes, our material being showcased at retail level. Like I indicated before, I see a lot even from SPAR, you know, we would see our citrus. When you go to 8 gig, you see some of our material. So it's a full range. When you go to some other fruit store as well, when you check, then you see it's ARC. But I think the challenge is that they don't know it's from the ARC. So perhaps they just take it because the farmers brought the material, but they don't know that it was bred by the ARC. So perhaps it's one of the things that we might need to work on with our farmers or our licensee.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ruwan. Maybe just a last follow-up on this, because as you know, the inquiry is to look into distortions in the market, right? If there are any factors that impede competition. Now, what would the use of more locally produced varieties help? How will that affect the market in South Africa? What difference would it make if we were to, say, use all local varieties and we don't use the imported ones? What are they going to be? Pricing advantages or yield advantages? You know, because I think you are familiar more with your varieties. You know, if you are you seeing varieties that are imported that you think as maybe are not as good as what maybe we have, that then affects the output? What are you seeing? What is I accept, you know, from the ARC's perspective, it would make sense for everything you produce to be sold and be bought, you know, in numbers, and you earn more royalties and all. But what would be that? What are you seeing in the market that you think us using more of our varieties would help improve the competitiveness of the fresh produce market in South Africa? And I think you have mentioned other points, you know, of offtake. Say, if only there could be some commitments for offtake agreements, or if only maybe the larger farmers could support the emerging farmers that you want them to partner with. So what would be that big picture issue that maybe you want to leave us with as we are considering this matter?
Okay, so the country will, when we plant local or use local varieties, we'll be able to contribute towards the GDP of the country. Because then we'll see more of the farmers now also, because there will be perhaps saturation locally, but now they would actually start to want to explore export market, so which is very good for everybody else. And then that part of exporting, because then there's an issue of keeping the material shelf life, will it last? Then there would now be a a process where there's a need for more research, because somebody must now research to say, how can we improve on this? So there will be more innovative ideas in terms of how to keep this product fresh up until it gets to Europe. So it also touches the issue of the R&D, so it will contribute on that as well. In terms of food shortage in the country, I think it will also contribute to that, because now there will be more, and there will be access for everybody else to cover, because there's still, I believe, issue of food shortage in the country. So it will also cover that part. So it's not only bringing funding to others, it will bring innovative ideas. Universities will start working on this, science councils, and more for the country as well.
Thank you for that. Mr. Bowles?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Covered. Mr. Murray? Thank you very much, Dr. Motsi, for taking your time to participate in this market inquiry. We do value your contribution. So thank you very much. You are excused, except for the follow-up questions that the team will send to you.
All right, thank you. I hope that the inquiry will come up with a solution that will help all of us, the breeders, the farmers, and the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray, do we have anyone? Not today, so we're done for the day. Okay. All right, so we adjourn. The hearings will proceed on Friday, the 28th of October 2023. We will resume at 10 a.m. in this venue. So thank you very much. a.m. So thanks, team, for clarifying that. Thank you.